I have so much to say. It looks fucking great.
It was pretty good.
In some ways.
The aliens mostly look pretty good.
Hell is wrong with y'all?
Whatever we imagine at the time, it will not look like that. The alien ship looks like a dick.
You wouldn't see Solid fucking Snake being like, Jonesy, Jonesy.
Hello, my baby. Hello, my darling.
Hello, my ragtime gal. Fuck you, Spaceballs. I could weep about this monster. God, I love this franchise. This monster is so important to me, you guys.
What? Would you get a Xenomorph tattoo?
Welcome to the Yestalgia podcast. I'm Basil.
Drew.
And I'm Amanda.
And today we will be talking about Alien. Quick synopsis. In the future, the cargo ship Nostromo receives an unexpected distress signal and awakens the crew, which leads to a shocking discovery. Ooh. I'm so sorry. All right, guys. Who has had experience with this movie before?
Big time me. This movie is in my DNA. This movie is in my entire psychological makeup as a human being. This movie is part of my identity, pretty much. So I've had a little bit. I've seen it a few times.
I believe I first saw this when I was an adult, or at least close to adulthood. But yeah, I've seen it a few times. It's funny because I also have seen the second one, and I think I prefer it because I remembered way more from the second one and kept attributing it to the first one. And when I was watching with Billy,
Yeah, I think the second one is more famous.
Yeah.
Second one is brilliant, but...
Yes. But because I had watched the second one, and yeah, I do think it's a little bit better. I was like harping on things where I'd be like, doesn't this happen? And Billy would be like, no, you are wrong. So
You were remembering the little girl.
Yeah, I remembered the cat. I remembered, I don't know, that the alien was like a stowaway, and it was all these kinds of little things like that. But anyways, yeah, I've seen it a few times. I clearly didn't remember it very well. Drew, what's your experience?
Despite my saying these things about the movies, I have never seen any of the original Alien movies. I've seen Prometheus, and I've seen Alien Covenant. I thought I should go back, but I never did.
Yeah, and I'll say
You're
that
welcome.
Those ones, I think, do a lot of expanding on sort of the world building and like lore, which is good in its own sense. But yeah, what does anyone want to start with?
I'll start. This movie came out in 1979. It is... I have so much to say that I don't even know where to begin. I'm going to kind of be all over the place, so I apologize in advance. Going back to our experience, to elaborate more, I first saw this movie when I was maybe like 5 or 6. It was probably closer to 5. It was young enough to where I had like working memories, and also young enough to where I wasn't afraid of this. Like, I was absorbing this media at face value.
I mean, it would still be scary even in that kind of sense, right? Like, I don't know. It's a pretty scary movie.
Well, okay. I'm going on a tangent here. Tiny humans go through a phase where they are supposed to not be scared of things so that they try shit. Like jumping off of stuff and climbing on stuff. It's a developmental...
And some people never get through it.
Exactly. I will say this movie is how old? 79, 89, 99, 09, 19. This movie is approaching 50 years old.
My mom was also watching, and we had done the math before too. Billy was like, it's like 40 years old or 45. My mom was like, no, it isn't.
Yep. Sorry, Mom.
And then we were like, no, it is. Sorry. And then she went, I'm so old.
I feel you, mama.
Yeah.
But let's
That just means you're experienced.
admit, let's all just, it looks fucking great, didn't it?
Yeah. It was pretty good.
In some ways.
Yeah. I'll say the aliens, and part of that is, I think, because it's practical, mostly look pretty good.
Hell is wrong with y'all?
Weird.
The ship doesn't look
Yeah.
futuristic, really. The
Of course it doesn't.
underside, exactly. I mean, I know it's because it's older, but it looks like how movies do the past representation of the future.
Retrofuturism. That was like a
Right.
big thing that Billy and I started talking about. Like, we paused the movie because I started talking about it because it's something I'm really fascinated by.
The medical bay, that was good, but the underside,
Well, but the medical bay looks good based on how we think the future will look. And that was what I thought was fascinating because there's the retrofuturism of like the 60s and 70s, and then this is more like the 70s, 80s, even into the 90s, I would say. And now we have like a different idea of like what the future will look like. But whatever we imagine at the time, it will not look like that. Like it never does. The thing I most think about is like Blade Runner 2049, because I think that one really encompasses a lot of ideas about the future that we, in terms of aesthetics that we have now. And it's like, it's not going to look like that. There's no way. But yeah. I also think the screens, when they were getting readings, were a little dated, you know?
Of course they were.
Yeah.
However, so this movie won awards for practical effect. It won awards for, I want to say, Best Director. It won tons and tons of awards, and it is still, I can't remember the official name of this award. It might not even be an award. I think it might just be like a recognition, but this movie has been recognized by some entity. I've tried desperately to find it on Google, and I couldn't. It has been recognized as like one of the most culturally and aesthetically significant pieces of media of all time, or something like that.
Like I said, I've never seen it, but I know a lot of the images from it because of how many places it is in different media.
And references, yeah.
Yeah, it has a lot of iconic moments.
Yeah.
I cannot get into the monster right now, but as far as practical effects go, the human eye and the human brain are very, very, very good at identifying what isn't really, really real. And this movie's insistence, not even insistence, it wasn't as though it had another alternative. This movie, in its time, it used what it had at its disposal. A guy in a costume, to seriously convince you, like, I was looking at real shit. I don't know this, I'm talking out of my ass right now, but I think that even, like, the shots of the outside of the spaceship, that had to be practical effects. There's no other way. It was 79. That had to be, like, a real item that was...
Like a model.
Yes. Yeah, that was just sort of
likely
being, like, floated in front of a camera by some guy.
I don't know if I'm just obsessed with seeing dicks everywhere, but however, in this movie, when they showed the alien ship, I was like, that looks like a dick on a hill.
It looks like two dicks, right?
Yeah.
It looks like a double
very
pronged
phallic.
assault. Oh, do we want to jump into that?
What, like the H.R. Geiger stuff?
So, okay, I do think that it's not tough to talk about this movie without mentioning the sexual imagery. And let me tack on an even better descriptor to that. The violent sexual imagery of this movie. It can be done. I can talk about it without mentioning that, but it's a big part of it, ain't it?
Well, I'll say that if you ever look at his art outside of like the conceptual stuff for Alien, it is also kind of violent sexual content, essentially.
No, but what I mean is that this movie's creators, the writer, the director, I've gone down so many internet rabbit holes in my life over this movie. I've seen interviews where the writer, Dave O'Bannon, I believe is his name, he literally says the sentence, "My intention was to attack the audience with sex." Like, this is a built-in feature of this movie. It is meant to make everybody uncomfortable. It's interesting because when you read interviews, these old interviews with Ridley Scott and, I hope I'm saying his name right, Dave O'Bannon, they were pretty much out to create a movie where they were like, yeah, I want the dudes to feel uncomfortable too. Like, it was on purpose, and it was a cross-gender, no one is safe from this, as sometimes folks are, usually male characters.
Yeah. Well, sort of, because if you consider this, like, I would consider this a horror movie. It's just not your kind of traditional horror movie. It's definitely not like a slasher movie.
I think most people consider it horror.
Yeah.
It's scary as fuck.
But I could see somebody saying like, oh, it doesn't fit these genre. But it does fit the genre trope of the final girl in a way.
I was going to say that too.
Yeah.
But you guys know, is it common knowledge? Because I'm about to say something that I think is common knowledge, so I don't want anybody to think that I think it's just an amazing gem that I'm dropping on you guys. But everybody knows that Ellen Ripley was written as a male, right?
I've heard that.
Yes.
Okay.
But, you know, anybody listening might not know that.
Yeah, none of her lines were changed.
Yep. Quickly back to the final girl, though.
That's a sign of a solid character.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there is something to be said, and I think I've talked about it in previous films that we've talked about, like, about how oftentimes women have to be stripped of their femininity to be considered strong. So there is an argument against that a little bit, because the idea that femininity isn't strong in any way, you know, it's weak and bad, basically. But I do think that in this case, it kind of doesn't matter either way. Like, this is just a person. They don't have anything that's very gendered at all.
She's a default person.
Yeah, in this sense, like, it doesn't really include that. It doesn't include must be act in a way that is considered, like, traditionally masculine, right? Like, she just is doing her job.
That's what's beautiful about this character and the dialogue that was written is that in society, a default person male is sort of the default. But with this character, this is the most, I could gush forever over this movie. While being splendidly written, Sigourney Weaver just kills in this movie. She's amazing. But she is playing a very neutrally written character in so many different ways, not just based upon gender, but you don't really get a whole lot of her quote unquote personality traits other than that she's like, I follow the prime directive. I take my job seriously. Like, that could be anybody.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, she does show certain bouts of empathy, but, like, that's sort of what you need in your, like, hero character, right? Like, because she goes back for Jones, the cat, and she tries to get everybody out that she can, you know, but that is something that is just consistent regardless. I just think sometimes people say that men are unempathetic, right? But that is a trait that does show up here.
Well, and that's great. If you think about it like this, let's say that they did not choose to cast Sigourney Weaver and they instead chose whatever dude. It works both ways. It works in the reverse direction where the cat had to be fucking saved at all costs, you guys. That's one of the things that I love about this movie is that you wouldn't see Solid fucking Snake being like, Jonesy, Jonesy, come on, I've got to save you from the deadly alien. Hurry, hurry, hurry. You wouldn't really see that. At least I don't think.
Yeah, that's sort of what I was kind of saying was generally an audience does prefer an empathetic character, but not in all circumstances, right? So like, because it is often considered not masculine to have empathy, especially for animals, right? But it is there, and it's not like you can't have a man character like that. It just, you know, it's like she's not feminine and she's not masculine. It is all very neutral.
She is a fucking human being.
Yeah.
And that's what is great about this movie. I'm going to jump forward a little bit. We can go back, but I want to jump forward a little bit to...
I did want to jump back, but it's back/forward.
Okay.
Sorry, we were talking about the final girl thing, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Sorry. You go.
Okay. So, like, a staple of the genre, particularly in slasher movies, is that people are punished for having sex, right? And that doesn't really apply here. But I realized the thing they end up being punished for is not following this like protocol, like not following the rules and the scientific protocol, they call it. And that's like part of what makes Ripley so mad. But it's the thing that also leads to basically everybody except for her dying and the cat.
Yeah.
So the 1-to-1 for it is like the less people follow protocol outside of course, Ash, which is an entirely different story. Yeah, but
Yeah.
you know, it's like once it happens once, right? When they let, what was his name? I know the actor's name, John Hurt, but I can't remember the character's name. Anyways, when they let him in with the face hugger on him, that's like the first thing. But then it like sort of keeps happening a little bit, like with each person. Does that make sense?
Last time I watched this movie was pre-COVID. And let me tell you something. I was like, there is no way these folks could have known the type of way that I feel right now in 2024, watching one person go, everybody knock it off, let's do the smart thing, and having everybody else go, but no, let's do the dumb shit. And look what happened.
I will say this also came in an interesting time because I believe I mentioned it in our previous Nostalgia. There was a book I had just read called To Be Taught If Fortunate, where a lot of it is about scientific exploration. So they have like very scientific protocols in it. And they talk about, there's a specific planet where it becomes a really big thing about how you have to clean all your tools. You cannot bring animals in. We cannot be out of our suits, because we'll contaminate their environment and they could contaminate us. And so it was very interesting when she was saying that, because I had already read a thing where like something kind of horrible happens when they they did follow procedure, but something horrible still happened. I don't want to give it away because it's just a very good book. But it was like seeing it again where I'm like, no, do what she says. I mean, I know do what she says because we all know that an alien ends up, coming on. But it's also like there are so many reasons that you do not let an alien on your ship, right?
Yeah.
Like I was like, they would all have some disease now because they also don't quarantine them even once they're on the ship.
Even having been on the alien ship, and I'm saying alien as in the big weird giant humanoid that they found. I'm not talking about the Xenomorph right now. But having been on an alien ship and having absolutely nothing happen, you still better sonic shower your ass before you get in my ship. Thank you.
And that's what I found so funny, where it was like, okay, they were worried about the one thing, but then you have Ripley putting her face right next to the face hugger. And it's like, what are you doing?
Every time Ash was like, hey guys, something's going on. What the hell was his name? It started with a K. The guy with the face hugger.
Oh.
Kane.
Okay, every time Ash would get on the comm and be like, hey, Captain, come check out Kane. And they would just go.
Into the same room.
Yeah. I would be like, no, dude, every time I go check out Kane with you, something fucked up happens, dog. Also, just real quick, the first few times I saw that movie, because I was a literal infant, I didn't get it. But as an adult watching that movie, I was like, people a million miles away could tell that guy was up to something, right? From like the beginning, could y'all?
Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
it was so
it's not
obvious.
Immediate.
Not right off the bat, but...
But, like I said, through cultural osmosis, I kind of knew.
Yeah.
Cheating.
Plus, having seen Prometheus, which, watching this movie, I now know Prometheus, this is kind of a remake, in a way. A lot of the same beats happen in Prometheus.
Yeah, that's not untrue.
I wasn't a tremendous fan. It did creep me out. It had a really good creepy factor to it. But no, this is the one, y'all. This one has my heart.
Yeah, like I said, it does seem like with Prometheus, and I forget what the other one is called, they're filling in a lot of the lore stuff that you don't get in this one, or really the next one.
They sure do glaze right on over that big giant guy. Like, they talk about him for maybe 2 minutes, and then it's like, well...
Prometheus is kind of all about them.
Yeah. Which, like I said, it does feel like these newer movies are kind of filling in gaps that maybe people are curious about with their own stories. Whether or not they're successful is up to personal taste, I think. But I do think that's an interesting way to go about, your future sequels. Can I also say, I know I've complained before about older movies having a slow pace, and this does have a slow pace. And maybe it's because it's sci-fi. It at least feels like every scene, even if it's slow, I'm getting new information. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So even though the pacing of the story is slow, I don't feel bored, or I don't feel its slowness, if that makes sense.
Okay, so this movie, it's almost 2 hours long. And I have trouble with long movies. But every single time I watch this, I was like, shit, this movie's over? It's only been on for like 15 minutes. Like for me, it flies by. But I think maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but let me just ask you, is maybe part of it that you're sort of like either reading something in the movie, such as in the scenes where they're sort of like Google searching how to kill alien, and the computer's like, I need more info, dog? Or is it because there's shit that's kind of going on in the background, so you're on edge? Like the cat was a source of a couple of jump scares, and you just have this sort of tendency to be searching the background while there's silence in the foreground.
Well, and I'll say I do think that's maybe some of it, but I think there's also a lot of longer shots where things are going really slowly, but they're telling you something, right? Like when they're about to wake up from stasis, there's a lot of these long shots, but they're establishing where we are. What are some of the things that are going on here? What is this environment like,
We are smoking in the spaceship while we eat.
Well, I mean, those vents were humongous, so...
It was questioning things about some stuff that was occurring on the ship. Like, why was there a cat on the ship in the first place?
Like, loose on the ship, too. Like, not just, like, confined.
There is an actual answer to that, and it actually sort of leads to more questions. The real answer is that it was a mouser, like it was hunting varmints, and the secondary answer is because they liked it.
Yeah, but like...
One of the more questions that are asking that is why and how.
Why are there rats?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I get having an animal around 'cause, oh my god, I love animals, but is it really that safe for that cat to be running around? Like, for the safety of the crew and the safety of the cat itself. Do you know what I mean?
It was supposed to be.
They're roaming through space. If that cat nicks one wrong wire, they're done.
Or knocks something over or falls into something. Like, maybe it would even damage the cargo. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
So two things. First of all, let's suspend our disbelief for a moment, because we are supposed to be in 1979, where we don't know what we know now. Also, shit, I forgot where I was going with this, and it was such a good point.
We were complaining about the cat being able to run around and mess shit up.
Yeah, I know. I hate when this happens.
And boy, does he, honestly.
Yeah, he's in the medical bay.
I don't know, the ship just looks like so dangerous. Yeah.
The cat is in the medical bay.
He's just everywhere, getting in everything.
I love him.
That ship looked like so unsafe in general.
You just made me remember the point that I was going to make. So what if a lot of people have only watched this movie once, or if they watched the movie as a younger person, or if they weren't paying attention, this is like a intergalactic tow truck. It's not really a tow truck, but it's like
a rig.
A rig. Yeah. It's like a Peterbilt out in space. Okay. So
18-wheeler.
It's supposed to have one function. It's supposed to go pick the shit up and bring it to somewhere else. Nobody is supposed to really be getting out of it, I don't think. It has, the option, obviously, for people to do that. But this ship and this crew's expectation is, I'm going to go do one thing and I'm coming right back to point A. So I actually caught this on this most recent watch. They received an SOS signal, or what they thought was an SOS signal, and they were required by some type of law to investigate it, no matter what type of ship they were. That's why so many of them were like salty and bitching, because they were like, this isn't my job.
Yeah.
And it had to be like reiterated, yeah, it's not our job, but it's the fucking law. And also, if we do it, we're going to get paid extra. So,
do they say it's a law, or do they say it's required? And because my interpretation was it was required by the corporation, yeah, not by law.
Right.
So splitting hairs, I said law. I guess what I meant was it's a requirement for you to get paid, which, hey, might as well be a fucking law, right?
I mean, yeah, because we don't know the structure of like the economy and like the world in general, so it's hard to even say. Maybe corporations are the law at this point. I don't know.
You do sort of get, and I don't want to talk about the follow-up movies a whole lot, but you do get the sense of everything is being done for the fucking bands. So yeah, I am so sorry, by the way, you guys. I love this movie so much that I am just blurting out whatever comes to mind. So y'all tell me to shut up and I will shut up.
Yeah, this is great. You be our guide through this movie.
I do think it's interesting because for me, I experienced this movie, but I didn't remember a lot about it. And then I played this game, Mass Effect, right? And it's an alien game. And there's this part where, because I was looking at the way their screens were showing readings, and I was like, that looks like when you're on the Mako and you have to like get resources off of a planet. And then I'm like, duh, it looks like that. It's taking it from Alien. You know what I mean? But for my frame of reference, it was like aliens doing the thing that's on Mass Effect.
This movie is so culturally significant in so many ways.
All about order you experience things.
Yeah. That's some of the reason we had talked previously, and I think I've mentioned this before, about how part of the reason I even had considered this for an idea for a podcast was about when Billy watched The Shining for the first time, right? So this is the OG. So sometimes when you go back to the original of things that influence a lot of other things, it doesn't hit the same way because you've technically seen all this before, right? And I think Drew would be the person to ask about that a little bit, because it's like, you did say you knew a bit about the movie before going in because it is like culturally significant and there are references to it everywhere.
I spent a lot of time on the internet.
Yeah, I guess I'd be interested to know your thoughts on, does it not quite hit the same way you think it might have hit people like then?
Yeah, probably. I think because, like I said, some of the things I already knew were going to happen, or I knew the basic tone of it. It's not quite what I think it would have been if I didn't know that stuff. So I'm kind of spoiled by the internet on movies.
You can't avoid that with this movie.
Right.
Was it like scary to you? Or was that kind of mitigated because of that?
But then again, I don't get scared by most things. Also, at the chestburster scene, because we watched Spaceballs previously, I was just thinking, hello, my baby. Hello, my darling.
Hello, my ragtime gal. I thought the same thing, and I was like, fuck you, Spaceballs, for ruining this for me.
Yeah. Well, and that is the kind of thing, is that these things are unfortunately already known to us. So it does make it hard for things to like hit the same way. You know what I mean?
So I'm sorry, you guys, because I was born and then like the doctor showed me this movie. I can't imagine watching this movie and not having my heart rate jump every single time, y'all. I never watch our movies twice, even if I really like them. I hardly ever watch any movie twice, period, dot the end. And by twice, I mean for the purposes of the podcast. Yes, I've watched movies twice in my life. I watched this fucking movie twice, and both times, that ending scene where she's in the fucking runabout and the thing is in there with her, my heart was pounding. It was a guy. It was just a guy, like, curled up in her hidey hole. And I was like, oh my God. It was really real.
I think because, again, like, I am in a pretty similar situation to Drew. And even when I first watched it, like, I had known a lot about it. And in particular, I'll say, I'm pretty sure the first time I watched it was with my ex-boyfriend who was really into it. So I kind of think I already knew from him certain stuff. But yeah, because those kind of things happen was something that I immediately expected when they were making those shots. You know what I mean? Like, slowly panning over the interior was like, oh God, there's going to be an alien there, isn't there? You know what I mean?
You guys were robbed.
When Kane was on the planet,
And he was inspecting the egg.
well, there's the facehugger.
Well, that was, I mean, yeah, you fell into the egg pit. First of all, R.I.P.
Yeah.
You fell into the fucking egg pit. Some of these folks were just so goddamn careless.
Yeah.
These people were sticking their face in everything.
Yep.
He was like, I'm going to stick my face in this, like, big pulsating vagina egg.
Especially you could see something moving in it.
Yeah.
That looked really convincing to me. The inside egg creature.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Well, I have all these things about what things look like in my notes. Like, the top of the egg looks like a placenta. And I was like, ah!
The top of the egg?
So the little opening, where it's opening at the top,
Yeah, like a crisscross opening.
inside of that, it looks like it is a placenta. Which,
Basically is.
when I think about it, probably is.
It's the yolk.
Yeah. The yolk. Ugh. No, the yolk would be the facehugger if it was not fertilized.
The face hugger, when they are like no goggles, no mask, just like digging all up in it, and they're like, look at that. I'm like, God damn, that's gushy. Like, they're just playing with it at that point.
The aliens are so alien from things I can think of on Earth, right? Because my big thing was there is an entirely different entity that is just used for gestation, like to facilitate gestation.
Too fertilized. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which is fascinating because I can't think of anything on Earth that does anything like that, right?
Yeah, it has a 2-part life cycle.
It doesn't even have a 2-part life cycle. It has 2 different beings.
2 creature.
Yeah.
A 2-creature life cycle. And they don't depend on each other.
Yeah, because, you know, when I was talking about it, Billy was like, well, there's butterflies. And I'm like, that's different. That's the same entity, and it is using the same DNA that made up the caterpillar.
You just go through metamorphosis.
Yes. Whereas in this case, it's like an entirely different entity. And Billy tried to argue with me about it, but then there was a part where it was very clear that both the facehugger and the implanted alien were alive at the same time. Because he was trying to say, like, well, you don't know that. Maybe it's putting into the person, like, its own, like, essence. You know, I mean, this is all like a little metaphysical woo-woo, but like itself into, and that's why it dies. But they exist at the same time for too long for that really to be the case.
Agree with you. It's 2 different creatures.
Yes.
There's a face hugger and there's a chest burster / xenomorph. Unless I've forgotten something, I think they're 2 different entities.
It's almost like they birth a living egg. Do you know what I mean? Because like the chest burster could be considered but that's not even it. That's why I said they birth a dick that goes down someone's throat and inseminates the person. But that's not really right either, I don't think.
I think you nailed it.
See, that's the thing though. That would imply that it needs the human's DNA. My interpretation was that it just needed the human as essentially like its egg. Like it just needed the human to gestate. It didn't need the human to like impregnate, I guess, or like, do you know what I'm saying? Like the human's DNA has nothing to do with it, because with the idea of like, if the facehugger was like being like, here's my penis, here's my deposit, and then the human's DNA mixed with that, that would be one thing. But it is more like it deposits the thing that already has all its DNA information in it.
No. It matters what it face hugs.
Does it?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Okay, so my favorite thing in the whole wide world is the alien dog. I want to say it's Alien 3, where the face hugger gets on a cow or an ox. or something, and they find the dead ox, and they're like, oh shit, we know something's gonna come out of this. And what came out of it, from a meta standpoint, was a little dog, like a whippet or something, in an alien costume, trotting down the hallway, and just, oh, so cute. You can, while you're watching it, you can just hear the little dog nails on the kitchen floor, like, it was so cute, and that's why it was cut and replaced with CGI. But a big crux of this story is that it's bad that this alien life form has found humans, because it's taking on the traits and qualities of whatever it's impregnating and mating with and bursting out of. So that's why the aliens across the franchise get smarter and smarter. Like, there's a whole movie about it where, she has to outsmart the queen, and they're learning, and it matters what they fuck with.
I was going off of what little I remember about the series and this specific film. You know what I mean? Where you don't necessarily get that is what's happening.
Oh, no. This gives you nothing. It gives you none of that.
But I went on a tirade about it. It's almost like they're more like plants in a way. Not exactly plants, and that's not right. Because I was thinking about like dandelions, where they have their seed, and the seed floats to then be, for the seed to then grow into the next. But I guess, it doesn't take on DNA of anything, so that's not really like it either. They're just so alien. Whenever I try and think about, what's similar, although I did look up, because they have the acid blood, I was like, is there any other animals that have blood that harms in any way? And there are animals that squirt blood at a predator, or animals that will just have it in their blood. So if you were to eat it, you'd be poisoned. But it is mostly like reptiles and bugs.
Yeah.
But in many other ways, they are very, very alien, which I think I like about that. Do you know what I mean? Because it's never going to feel... I think that's part of why it's sort of successful in terms of its VFX. Well, it's practical effects, so not really VFX. But it's practical effects because, some of them aren't, like the thing with Ash's head later, which we can get to, but because the aliens are so alien, you're not like, oh, it's supposed to look like this and it's wrong, because it could look like anything. It doesn't matter, right?
It's life unlike we know it.
Yeah. And that works in terms of the aliens still holding up, because you made it so unlike anything we are familiar with. It can't be considered quote unquote wrong, right? Like, you'll never get Uncanny Valley from an alien because it's so far from reality.
You cannot. I don't want to get into the monster yet because, y'all, I could weep about this monster. It's a work of art. Like, its design, its purpose.
Got a grill.
Yeah.
Do what?
As a question, though, why?
It has a grill.
It's got 2 grills.
Like, it's got metal teeth, yeah. And I thought that was really funny.
Some wet grills. And that is a wet monster, you guys. That is a fucking wet monster.
But how does it have, metal in its body? You know what I mean?
That would be H.R. Geiger's influence. His art is sort of an amalgam of biology and mechanics. That monster was obviously designed, I think this is common knowledge, was designed by him. He was handpicked. He was fucking cherry-picked by Ridley Scott and O'Bannon to create this monster based off of the artwork that he did for a book called Necronomicon. It was basically his own art book. If you ever look it up, it's fascinating. You will totally see where Prometheus came from. His art is pervasive throughout this whole franchise, but it's very sort of biomechanical. Everything has sort of a fleshy feel to it, but also a machine feel to it. His artwork is beautiful. I don't know anything about him as a human being. I've only seen his paintings and his drawings. Very creepy. Yeah, I'm not going to get into the monster yet. Not yet. There's still so much to talk about.
And now for something completely different.
John Hurt was hot. Also, the captain was hot. Also, Sigourney Weaver. There's just a bunch of hot people on this ship.
There are some hot ones. I did feel like the captain, I just know him as Dallas, he felt like a sort of, and this is me using my future knowledge to impose upon the past, he did seem like a busted Riker.
See that, but that's not a bad thing.
Busted Riker is still good.
Still pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, and of course, Sigourney. Oh. For those of us who have always known.
Aliens have asymmetrical amount of legs. Why were they
do?
carbon-based? They don't have an asymmetric amount of legs. They have 4.
They actually, according to Ash, they could become silicate-based.
Ooh.
In order to protect themselves from extreme temperatures. Do we want to talk about why the Xenomorph was a perfect being, according to Ash?
Well, I mean, he is an android. He was probably given that information from someone else.
And he says they have no delusions of morality. That was one of the reasons why they were, by someone, considered perfect.
Ash was interesting because I remembered enough about this movie to know he was an android at the beginning. But I couldn't remember if anybody else knew if he was an android, so I was trying to suss it out. And then I was like, does he always know that the aliens are there? Or did he just figure it out once it was on the ship? And then of course by the end you find out, yeah, nobody knew he was an android, and also he knew from the second they got the distress signal exactly what was happening. But it is weird when you know a little bit about something, or you remember a little bit and you're like, how does this happen? How do we get here? I know we get to another place. How does that happen?
Or the steps. And I'm sorry, but the robot malfunction scene was one of the top freakiest scenes for me. And also fucking gross. And also, any kind of pasta Alfredo has been ruined for me since I saw this movie as an infant.
Yeah, it's really fucking gross. I do find it interesting when people have to... They're actors, right?
Yeah.
And so most of your acting is saying dialogue, right? But your body is part of it. But then you have to do something crazy like that.
Yeah, no, you have to really just jerk around. And
Yes.
I also appreciate that. I also appreciate fake laughter, I think, is the other side of that. When an actor, or especially a voice actor, like someone doing a cartoon character, does great fake laughter, I'm like, wow, that's great. That's a talent. The chest burster, what was his name?
Pain.
That had to be pretty taxing, that whole scene.
Well, yeah, because you're doing something with practical effects, so I'm sure it's a pain in the ass.
Right, but you also have to convince the camera that you're dying horribly from the inside. And oh man, when he's piling on that spaghetti, or whatever the hell it was, he is just taking scoop after scoop after scoop of something, and Ash is looking at him. The camera pans to Ash, clearly looking at him. It was subtle. You would miss it the first time you watched it, but any subsequent time you watched it, you're like, oh, he's waiting. He knows what's about to happen. Everything makes sense the second time you watch it.
I don't know if he knows exactly what's going to happen, right? Some of it, I imagine, is almost a sense of curiosity, insofar as an android can feel that.
Yeah, it feels like he's accomplishing his mission.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least he's trying, but he's also observational. I don't know.
Hey, why was it raining inside of the ship? Wouldn't that be a cause for concern?
That I can't tell you. That I cannot tell you. And also the fool opens up his mouth and is like, yeah. Bleh. I'm like, stop that.
And I'm like, do they shower in here? What's going on?
To me, it seemed like window unit drippings. And I was like, stop that.
But it was dripping a lot.
Yeah.
I was just like, wouldn't you be like, hey, that's a problem. Our ship should not be leaking like this. It was so weird.
It was normal for it to be raining. That was the rain deck.
Yeah. It's just the deck you go to when you want to feel what rain is like, since you've been on a ship for so long.
Oh, God. How dismal was this spaceship, you guys? Okay, we have Star Trek, and we have had Star Trek for decades beyond Alien. How fucking dismal is this spaceship?
It is a cargo ship, which I think is why, and they're supposed to be in homeostasis. So, like, I kind of get why it's not cushy, right?
That's my point. In Star Trek, they could be in homeostasis until they get to the strange new world that they're supposed to be exploring. But for these fools, it was like, it's better for you if you're just fucking asleep, okay? Like, they had no outlet. They had nothing cool to do. They were just smoking cigarettes in the breakfast room. That was their pleasure.
The coffee's the best thing on the ship, so.
The coffee was the best damn thing on the
Hey,
ship.
there's also a cute cat that gets everyone in trouble.
The cat was their one solace.
There's a reason you shouldn't let the cat out like that, because it gets in trouble. Anyways.
Let's dig even deeper. Let's get let's dig into the metaphors of this movie. One line, as I said before, one line that really hit me was Ash talking about why the Xenomorph is a quote-unquote perfect creature. And he said it's because it has no delusions of morality. After this scene, and I think maybe a little bit before, actually, yes, it was during the rain scene where he's licking up the gross condensation coming from God knows where. They're looking for this cat. It's not just Ellen Ripley.
Yeah.
Several people are looking for this fucking cat, which is a direct contrast to that whole delivery that Ash gives of this creature is perfect because it does not give a fuck about anything but itself. And then we have these folks risking their lives and dying to find Jonesy.
Yeah, exactly. They're giving a fuck is why they died. So proving his point.
Hold on, but Ripley didn't die, and she did the most for the cat.
The biggest fuck.
Yeah.
She did the utmost. I think the message was that if you give up your delusion of morality, is this what you're willing to become?
Well, and it's sort of interesting because realistic humanity would become more like Ash, not the Xenomorph, right?
Correct. Which is a bad thing. We hate that, right?
But I think that's interesting because in a way he's talking about himself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, he is. He agrees.
Yeah.
Morality is a delusion. It means nothing. It's meaningless.
But I also think it's funny because in the beginning, he does feign empathy. So he knows what it looks like. You know what I mean? And he knows enough about it, but it is something I don't know if he's incapable of it because, like, I don't know really how the androids work in this universe. Although there is the nice one in the second one, but that's like years later. So maybe that's just like newer technology. So like if they are just unable to feel emotions and things like that, then his sort of feigning the empathy and then being kind of without morals is like understandable, right? Because he's just a machine. But if he has any feelings, then it's like, oh, okay, this is a person, basically.
I would like to view Ash as another part of his directive is that he has to blend in and be trusted by this crew initially.
Yeah.
I was thinking, why would they make a robot who looks so, not to body shame anybody, but he's like kind of pudgy and short, but yeah, they want to blend in better.
They want
more
to look
realistic.
like a human. Yeah.
Yeah. Unlike David in Prometheus.
Right. God, I love this franchise, you guys. It has some misses. It has some big fucking misses. But
David in Prometheus, they always know he's an android, right? Like the crew knows.
I think so.
Okay, yeah. That's what I thought.
And I've only seen Prometheus once.
Same.
But don't want to get into Prometheus. Doesn't he have like a bunch of fucking formaldehyde jars of different things that the alien could turn into?
Isn't that in the other one?
I thought that was Prometheus, where
Maybe
he
it
had
is.
gross formaldehyde jars of freaky xenomorphs that didn't quite make it.
I haven't seen it in a while either. I only saw it a couple times.
All right, we'll revisit that.
Particularly, I was thinking it's the one after Prometheus. I don't remember the name again. But I know they make implications that he was experimenting on Numi Rapace's body. I don't remember the character's name. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
No, she's not in the second one. It's the one after Prometheus.
Alien Covenant.
In Covenant,
Never seen it.
David also shows up, and there is an implication that he has been experimenting on whatever Noomi Rapace's character's body. Basically, she's dead. You see her body at one point. But yeah, that's why I was assuming it would have been that one because of the experimenting, you know?
No, I've never seen that one. It was definitely Prometheus. It was where she cuts the own alien out of her own body. And I want to say it was one of the earlier scenes where she goes into like his shithole and he's got all these drawings all over the walls and he's got like freaky animals in jars. But anyway, I can't speak on it. I've only seen it once. Don't really remember it. Y'all, this whole movie feels like it was 15 minutes long. That T-5 minute shit is the iconic essence of stress.
I will say that I did get sleepy near the end.
What?
Oh no, I'm a sleepy bitch. I'm like a little sleepy baby, so like maybe that's all it is. But
You sleepy bitch. That was the part where my heart was about to fail.
once it was on the getaway ship with her, I was like a little more awake. But like before that, I was kind of like, ooh, I'm getting sleepy. I'm sleepy now.
Y'all are losers. So, okay.
Fuck you.
What did I do?
The whole...
You didn't defend her.
No. I hear you over there like, No, that scene on the shuttlecraft where she was like, I'm good. I'm going to put on my thong now and put my cat in cryogenesis. And I'm just going to fucking kick it. And it's there. It's there, y'all. Like, this monster. Okay, I'm going to stop. We're done. Here I go. The floodgates are fucking open. This monster. I have actually, in the past, I have had a therapist for like 5 solid years, and she got to know me really well, and I had panic disorder at the time. You do not have to edit any of this out. I've brought this monster up. Yes, I know it's called a Xenomorph. I have brought this thing up so many times, evidently, to this therapist that eventually she was like, I guess she was also a fan too, or like knew a lot about the franchise. She explained panic disorder to me through the Xenomorph. She was like, look, you remember that scene at the end of Alien where Ripley's in the shuttlecraft and she has exploded her ship. She has self-destructed her ship, which is what you have just done. You have just self-destructed your fucking ship. You've had a total meltdown. You've had a total breakdown. It's still in there with her. That was how she explained how fear, it was a metaphor for like how fear stays in your body, like with you, no matter how many shuttlecrafts you blow up, no matter how many xenomorphs you eject out of airlock. In the second movie, I think she wakes up and pretty much folks are like, hi, we want you to deal with the alien again.
Like, fuck no.
Yeah, this shit never leaves you. This monster is so important to me, you guys. I can't even articulate my thoughts properly. But I'm going to try.
What? Would you get a Xenomorph tattoo?
Maybe. I never thought about it.
Oh, but you thought about a Pokemon tattoo. Sorry.
Yeah, I do want Espeon and Umbreon, and I always have. But no, I have never thought about it. But, I mean, God. This creature is so ingrained in my identity. When I was in North Texas, we have a Ripley's Believe It or Not / something House of Wax. And for a daycare field trip, okay, you guys? So I was, again, maybe 7 or 8. During Halloween, we went to the House of Wax's Halloween event, and it was horrifying because there were people pretending to be wax figures, and every now and then the lights would go dim and you would see some wax figures move. Okay, this all should have been traumatizing, but it was very formative to me because one of the exhibits was a life-sized xenomorph, and I don't want to see this thing again as an adult because I don't want to tarnish this memory. Even as like an 8-year-old, I loved this creature so much that when I walked into the Xenomorph exhibit, it had a strobe light. Like, this was in the very early 90s, maybe even the late 80s. So, of course, everyone was like, strobe light to everybody. Who gives a fuck what your health conditions are? Let's strobe you to death. There was a strobe light in a room with what to me seemed like a fucking 15-foot tall Xenomorph. And it looked just like the movie. It looked wet.
Wait.
And the strobe light made it look like it could be moving. This creature is so powerful. I had so many things that I wanted to say about the Xenomorph, and now I'm just like lost in the fucking sauce of it, and I can't. Am I the only one to whom this monster is so damn near and dear to my heart?
I talked about that thing where I was going off about, like, I think Billy thought I was mad, which I wasn't. I was just like, this is so interesting about, like, the whole thing about having an entirely different entity than what actually is reproduced as a part of your reproductive system. So I was going off about that at one point. But yeah, I mean, I do think they're interesting. I am very curious. How do they, like, detect things? Because it doesn't look like they have eyes.
They just fucking do. No, they don't have eyes. I don't know that, but I'm going to assume it's sort of like an electromagnetic thing, maybe like a shark.
Echolocation.
It doesn't really make a whole lot of noise when it's hunting. It makes noise when it's being killed.
Maybe it can smell really good.
Yeah.
I was just so curious because I was like, this thing doesn't have eyes. It can find them, like, anywhere. What the hell?
And it stares them down every time. It is face-to-face contact. It's not just like an animal. It's not like tearing into you like a cheetah tears into a baby gazelle. It's like, I'm going to stare you down and you're going to appreciate my presence, and then I'll fuck you up.
I mean, I will say that I forget who I was talking to about this, or where I heard this, but they were talking about, like, approaching, like, prey animals, like bunnies and stuff like that, like, it's best not to go, like, head on with them. And part of that is because predators have two eyes in front of their heads most of the time, whereas the more prey animals have their eyes on the sides of their heads more often. So if you're staring straight at them, you will scare them automatically. So I don't know if that's some of what's happening here.
It's definitely cinematography, like, when it comes down to it. I would literally have dreams, and I'm going to say dreams and not nightmares, about the Xenomorph when I was a little kid, because it didn't scare me. It truly fascinated me, and I always wondered, I was like, yeah, I know they were being hunted within an inch of their life. And yes, I know this thing is horribly deadly. It has acid blood. It's basically almost death proof, and it is out to get them. But I was like, what if someone tried to communicate with it? I always wanted to get into that big, weird, elongated brain. This monster means so much to me.
But there doesn't seem to be... Okay, I'm, again, mostly going off of this movie because I saw it most recently, so I actually remember. Because we were talking about this, Billy and I, after the movie, about how they don't seem to be sentient beings, at least, again, in this movie. They are much closer to, like, an animal, like, eat, breed, survive, you know?
Yes.
So, like, in their head is probably not much, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, and to the discredit of my much, much younger self, the later adaptations did sort of expand upon, as it's evolving, it is becoming more intelligent. That was the one thing that Ellen had over this animal, is that she was more intelligent.
And that is how humans survived at all.
Yes.
To begin with.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, she was more intelligent. Actually, let's back it up even further and just say her morality, her willingness to pick the least amount of victims in the trolley problem could have solved the whole goddamn thing. She was right from the beginning to say, no, fuck out of here. Go to quarantine. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Even that one dude,
Ain?
Hayne? No, not Hayne, not Kane. The black guy.
Parker.
Parker, thank you. He kept saying, like, just fucking put them in...
Yeah, I thought that too.
Yeah, he was like, just fucking freeze them. Why aren't you freezing them? Well, now we know it was Ash.
Yeah.
Well, and like I mentioned before, though, they are kind of being punished for not going through protocol, essentially. Like every step that they take that is against what their protocol is supposed to be leads them into more danger each time. To be fair, Ash does some of it. Like he's the first person that opens the hatch to begin with when she says, don't open that fucking hatch.
Yeah. And he was like, nope, hatch open. Fuck you.
Yeah, I did write in my notes because it reminded me of this because of the cat. I've only had Jones for a day and a half, but if anything happens to him, I would kill everyone in this room and then myself, which is how they treat Jones. That is a reference to Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but it made me think of it immediately because I was like, oh, this cat's so fucking cute. No wonder they keep going after him.
He was a very, very striking kitty visually, and also great job. Props to this movie for making some of the scariest scenes just a cat fucking reacting to something off screen. This movie is great.
Something that you can't see and also the people in the movie can't see. Because they do take a while before you even see it. You start seeing like bits about it, right? Like you see it shed skin and you kind of see it when he like pops out and stuff like that. They do a good job about like delayed gratification a little bit.
And out of nowhere, right? It is a big mamma jamma. Like, you didn't expect that to happen within 3 minutes. But yeah, it's like, nah.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't go through me growth stages.
Yeah, that's fair.
Small with the skin that Brett found, and then the next second it was full size.
Okay, but maybe it actually did go through another shed. It's just like up in the vents. You know what I mean? We don't really know.
Still, that's not that much time in between.
Yeah.
She requires privacy. Also, she is the perfect being. We don't know what she's up to up in those air ducts.
Other thing written in my notes. Hey, they still have Chuck Taylors in the future.
I mean, they're classic, right?
Shoes?
Those Converse shoes, yeah. They still exist. Well, apparently, 79, they were like, these will be around forever.
Timeless.
And they are
They made it thus far.
Yeah, it's true. And they are still pretty popular, so I guess. Even though, I'm sorry, they have the worst
support.
Yes, for your feet. They're awful.
Yeah, my daughter is actually not allowed to wear them or anything like them. The orthopedics department will come down on me. They're like, nah, this isn't working.
Yeah. They wear through kind of quick too for how expensive they are. Okay. But we don't have to keep talking about Chuck Taylors. I'm just looking through my notes about things I haven't actually mentioned.
I've read through all my notes. I've been a freak about the monster. And that's pretty much it.
Oh, when they first woke up and other female.
Lambert.
Yeah, Lambert. I was wondering, is it like a outtake they kept in or something? She's just like, I am cold.
I think it was just one of those things that they did back in old movies just to show people shooting the shit. And that is not present in modern movies.
Yeah, I get that. But any other character who said, I'm cold. She said, I am cold. And it sounded kind of stilted too.
Did she say it like that? Like, just, I am cold.
Kinda, yeah.
Oh, no.
You don't even see her yet. You just hear her voice say, I am cold. It sounds kind of stilted and everything.
Because, like, I can see that sentence if you go, I am cold. You know what I mean? Or something like that.
Yeah.
But if it's just like, I am cold. Meet Morp.
She didn't sound robotic or anything, but I don't know. Maybe it's just me. It seemed weird.
Inflection wasn't really there.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
Hey, guys. I am cold. Yeah. I am cold.
That sounds weird. That does sound really weird.
Cold. I really have to pee.
Just in regular conversation saying I am cold, except I'm cold.
I have a full bladder.
That's an entirely different thing.
Are you guys experiencing delusions of morality? Because I am cold.
It was interesting when they were on the planet. You could see very, very clearly a planet with rings. And I basically was like, would that ever happen? Because wouldn't all the asteroids go to the biggest planet? So are they on a moon?
Stop it. Also, Wouldn't Ripley have been sucked out of the air vacuum along with the alien when she let it
Yes.
out? We can do this all
Well,
night.
she was holding on to something, but yeah,
I
she
don't
still
think
would have
it
gone
works
out.
like that.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, I don't think it matters what you're holding on to. You're gonna get smooshed. You're gonna get spaghettified.
Your arms will rip out the sockets.
If
Yeah.
you're like strapped in somehow, then maybe. I don't know.
Girl, I think you're gonna get spaghettified. It's like the Titan submersible. One tiny crack and you are dead.
Yeah, but that's shit they put in like many sci-fi things. It's like the opposite of claustrophobia.
I hate space and I hate underwater.
Things that are infinite and unknown, or at least feel infinite.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's get on to our Yestalgias. I think this movie holds up pretty well. There's very little in it that's problematic. The only thing I could think of is when they're in somebody's bunk and there's lots of naked ladies plastered on their wall. But I can't even think of anything else specifically. And
We're in good shape.
yeah, but especially for 79, you know what I mean? And it's enjoyable. Like, it's still enjoyable. There's not a lot to criticize, I feel like, about it. I mean, if it's not your type of movie, it's not your type of movie, you know, whatever. But it is altogether a good movie. So for me, it is just a Yestalgia completely.
It's Yestalgia for me too, for the same reasons you said. And the things I did say against it were just, nitpicking, like you have to do for a review show.
Yeah.
Sure. I'll forgive you.
It was entertaining. I watched it twice, and did I have a bad time the second time? Like, yeah, I discovered other things I missed the first time, second time. So, yeah, it holds up. I had never seen it before, but for the year it was made, it stands up. It's still comparable to modern movies in ways. So, yeah, nostalgia.
I think we know Amanda's answer, though.
Yeah.
This movie is like my surrogate mother, you guys.
You're going to say no to your mother.
Yestalgia. This monster is my life breath. It lives in my heart. And that's not a bad thing. It lives and thrives in my heart. And that's all I have to say. I think I've gushed enough.
So it's a pretty unanimous Yestalgia. And that has been our episode. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.
Welcome.
See ya.
Now listen here, you mullet. Why don't you just light your tampon and blow your box apart? Because it's the only bang you're ever gonna get, sweetheart.